Hi guys, welcome to the video podcast of Product Manager Thought Collectives. This roundtable, we have invited Xiaohan, Ilya, and Junwei, three different people coming from different backgrounds, and they found their path into venture capital and investing. So I think that's one of a very kind of aspiring path for many product managers. So the first questions I have for you three is like, how did you find your career path in the venture capital and angel investment area? Because maybe it's by accident, maybe you have to forge a way in, but I would love to learn from your journeys.
I can start.
Xiaohan, do you want to?
Yeah.
Ilya, you can go first. Yeah.
So for me, it was pretty much by accident because the very first company I joined after the uni was like a venture studio company, which was building the startups for other people, pretty much. So what we did, we were looking for smart PhD students with great ideas who didn't know how to build companies and help them like on the sales and all the other stuff of actual business. And that's where I just met a lot of great founders, a lot of great people who have a lot of smart ideas. And what I like about the founders is that they are always positive about the future, because I guess otherwise you wouldn't be able to build something new. And that's where I just love the whole startup game or the whole startup industry. Pretty much stayed there in different roles ever since. And eventually I just understood that I'm much better at helping other people to build companies by investing into them than building myself, because I tried to build startups and for me it didn't really work, but I can really see how I can help as an investor, and that's why I'm pretty much on this side of the table.
That's interesting. So you kind of found your own path. It was not an intentional career path for you.
Yeah, I think I initially just loved the industry, like the whole startups and everything around it. And then I tried to do different things. I tried to work in startups, tried to build my own startups and invest into startups. Pretty much that's all I think you can do. And yeah, and I just realized that the more value I can bring is by investing into startups, and yeah, that's the more result I also see as an individual when I invest compared to other parts of the startups. Yeah, so that's why I kind of decided to stay on this side.
Got it. Yeah. How about you, Xiaohan?
Yes, for me, I think it's very interesting because actually back at my university, I tried a new startup, and that was the first time I have a shallow taste of how VC and all the investment world working, because you need to like get contact with all those people. But what's really triggering my interest in this field is that I had a visit to Hong Kong in 2015. I lived there for like half a year. But when I go back to China, the mainland China, I think that's the time when the mobile application of internet was thriving at that time. And you could see like Didi, the Chinese version of Uber. You could see like Meituan, the Chinese version of DoorDash. And there is ByteDance, there is Kuaishou, and all of those fascinating applications were thriving at that time. And you could see the very drastic comparison between the life in China, the mainland China versus Hong Kong, because it's a very established and mature society, but there is so much change happening in this world. So I really want to like keep pace with all the cutting edge um, changes in this world. And I found that like venture capital is the best way for me to reach all the amazing founders and all the opportunities in the tech world. And if you look at the market, there are many institutions doing investment, but there is a very special case that's Tencent investment, because Tencent is already the leading company in the internet segment, but it also has a very big platform, the investment platform. So you can not only meet with all the amazing founders outside of Tencent, you can also mingle with all the brilliant people within its business groups, especially in gaming and social network. All of those industries are very interesting to me. So I just decided very quickly that I need to join this journey, and the best way is maybe just to do Tencent investment, and that's my story.
Awesome. So you kind of saw there's opportunity in the mobile area in China, and then you joined Tencent, the investment kind of arm of Tencent, and then that's how you found your way into the venture capital.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, awesome. How about you, Junwei?
Thanks for Ilya. Thanks for Xiaohan share the story on their side. For me, I get this kind of sense starting from during my PhD in New York, because I see this kind of a startup and some innovation in the university, and the professor actually want to raising money to industrialize these ideas or product for their papers. So I have this kind of sense, but during that time I didn't imagine I will officially start this kind of angel investment journey on my side. It happened during, the COVID. During that time, actually, lots of early stage, the focus on the early stage venture capital, they need the consulting support, especially they touch some hard technology, this kind of startup. They find the lack of the professional knowledge. So I play the consulting role, play with them. And later, actually, I find maybe I also can invest some money on my side to cooperate with the founder together, to learn with each other. For example, yes, I will share some language, the common language in the investment part, and they will share some context and more academic knowledge on their side in the specific field. Learn with each other, support with each other, and sometimes I also drive the tech, especially about the AI part. Yeah, now we definitely have the hype in the AI, so we also lead the AI community. So during that time, the community and the venture capital, this kind of a consulting role and my academic background role, I think these three parts, these pillars, help me to talk with different the field people. Yeah. It looks like it's not planned in my blueprint, but it happened, yes, by chance.
Yeah, so sounds like you have a different path. So because you have a PhD in computer science, so you come from a very technical background. And then, part of like the research / consulting, plus I think you also joined big corporations, as you mentioned earlier, like Microsoft, Uber, right? So that gave you kind of a foundational view of how these large corporations work. And then that helped you with your technical background that you can give, let's say, a more holistic perspective from a PhD side, right? How does the system work? And you have a more kind of academic background. So that's great. I think it's interesting that three of you have different paths through the community, through kind of the big corps venture capital side, and then also through kind of the academic side. You all found your way into the venture capital world. So the next questions I have are, what are some of the biggest challenge you're facing? So you guys are working at different stages of the firm. Maybe we can also take a step back to discuss for your company or for your role, what stage of company do you usually talk to? And then what kind of challenges do you face on a day-to-day operation basis?
Yeah, I can start. I've only, I think if just for background, so pretty much have been investing for around 6 or 7 last years, like more or less, and I've only invested into early stages, so it's pre-seed and seed. Pretty much pre-seed is when you have nothing, usually just an idea maybe or some MVP with a product, with some first customers. And with the seed, it's usually you have some revenue, some established customer base, like more or less, but still it's very early and you're not sure if it's going to work or not in the long term. So this is my experience, and we usually invested in the early stages. I believe that you still, in the most of the cases, you invest into the people. So you believe that these founders are able to execute on their idea. Like, of course, you have to believe in the idea that it should work, but usually you just don't have enough data, which is probably like a challenge in the early stages. You don't have enough data to look at, and you usually just look at what is there, and it's usually just the founders with some very first metrics, with some very first customers that you can talk to and understand why they're using this usually not really nice looking or prototype, and like what's the big story there. And that's why I think the challenge in the early stages is that it's usually you have to be a very good psychologist, or you just have to understand people and talk with as many people as possible just to understand who is a nice person, who is not. Because if you invest in the early stages, you usually you should understand that it's a partnership for like at least 7 or even like 10 years. And I believe that like there are different ways of looking at this, but I personally believe that you still should be able to have a nice, just people oriented relationship with the founders. It's not only business, it's more like you can just talk about something else, just because it's still like a partnership for a very long time, and that's why I think it's important. But for the challenges, I would say it's not enough data. And another challenge for me personally is it's connected to the fact that we usually invest into very different companies. So we are like a generalist investor, as they call it. What it means that we can invest into fintech, into deep tech, and everything in between. And that's why it's usually very hard to be on top of every single stuff that happen in different industries. And that's why we might lose something really cool just because we are not very deep into something in particular. For example, if you compare it to, for example, fintech only VC fund, they only invest into one industry, and that's why they kind of they have more knowledge about it. But for us, it's like every single time we have to dig deeper to understand if it really makes sense or not. But the good stuff is that it's early stage. It's not really a lot of you have to dig into, but still it's kind of a limitation that it takes more time for us to understand. Of course, we know some industries more than the others, but still, the fact that we look into a lot of different companies, it's just sometimes takes more time to understand, to do research, and talk with people who know it better. And that's a challenge as well, especially now with the whole AI and with any boom that is happening. A lot of companies trying to build something, and it's very hard to understand which one is real and which one is just because it's hype. So that's the challenge for us.
Got it. Xiaohan, Junwei, do your companies also invest pretty early? Then what do you have similar challenges?
Yeah, Maybe I will say first, and I totally agree with Ilya. So, our company, for the VC team of our company, we are also very focused on like from seed to round A, um, like at those stage. So we totally agree that it's very difficult to make investment decision because it's all case by case, and it's very difficult to really how to say replicate your understanding of one industry and apply that to another. So you need to continuously learn different things and to keep you updated. But another like real challenge for us is we're also like very interested in AI at the moment, and AI is a global thing. And the most fascinating companies and the great innovations, most of them are actually happening in the US. So the key challenge for us is it's not only about investment assessment, but it's about sourcing and coverage and how could I really effectively build access to those brilliant people and those companies. So that's a very realistic problem for us, especially when we're based in China, but we're already like actively expanding our exposure to like US and other countries. And another thing, I think, for like from a standpoint of the career path in the investment, and also from how we create a good organization to continuously doing investment, is that I think it's difficult to create a very effective and healthy feedback mechanism for your whole team. And that can help you dynamically adjust and correct your behaviors and help you iterate. Because I think during your investment career, sometimes there will be too much noise in the market, and sometimes there will be a serious lack of data point to validate your investment decisions. So a lack of feedback loop is a very serious problem, especially for like young investors. How could you like evaluate your behaviors, whether it's wrong or right? You need to continuously to do that and to stick to your own convictions. So it's really difficult and a challenge to like you need to remain very open-minded. You listen to different voices, but at the same time you need to stay truly independent. So I think that's maybe a challenge, like a companion your whole career path.
Yeah, that's a good point, because usually, let's say in the product management world or in software engineering world, you would have performance review, right? You would know how the company has done the last year, how your team has been doing. But for venture capital, the feedback loop is longer, right? You might not see an exit until 8 or 10 years later, right? And then are the behaviors you saw a long time ago, are those like reflecting the current changes? And then, as Ilya said, the pattern recognition, right? How can you select the best people given very limited data points, right? That's a great point. Junwei, yeah, I would love to know more about your company and the challenges you face as well.
Yeah, thank you for Xiaohan and Ilya share. I mean, this kind of challenge during the career path. Frankly speaking, I also come across the similar problem. Yes, especially about the seed round or pre. I think pre maybe it's okay, but the seed round and pre-seed is very challenging, very lack of the data point. And sometimes we need to know, for the professors, for this kind of the top engineers, maybe they have the insight, but actually they still lack of some clear understanding what's the final stage of the production. So frankly speaking, they will pivot a few times during the journey, but we need to looking into the core of the founders and for the the innovation, the power of the innovation of the techniques they have. For the founders, we maybe prefer the founders actually have other resilience. They are strong. Yeah, they are hardcore for their personality. And yes, for the technical part, we need to know actually they maybe have the long-term impact. It's not just a hype or bubble, especially in this kind of period. So lots of noise in the market. I think this kind of a challenge we need to confront with. And another thing is for the early stage investments, the reinforcement part. I think Xiaohan already mentioned the backward learning is very long. Usually for the startup from the seed round go to the IPO maybe about 8 or 9 years, which means it's a long journey. But for the early stage investments, how to learn, or maybe we just missed the investment opportunity, how to get the good takeaway from this kind of successful case or the failures. I think it's also a challenge. Yeah, I think this kind of the things during the investment journey.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think because three of you coming from different background, like one question I've always been thinking about is how do venture capitalists learn a new field, right? So Ilya, let's say you mentioned you guys are generalists, right? So you basically have to know a little bit of everything. Versus Junwei, if you guys specialize in AI field, or Xiaohan, if you specialize in certain field, you still have to be an expert in a very short amount of time. So how do you guys dive deep into the certain verticals and try to absorb as much as possible so you can evaluate better whether this deal is good or not?
Yeah, I think like for me personally, the best way to learn is to speak with people, because I think there's a lot of founders when they do the pitch decks or when they just try to show their idea, they usually use a lot of data from like McKinsey reports or from any other consultancy or marketing agencies or something, like showing that there is a market. But usually, like for me, what I found the best way to understand if it's actually the problem which people are ready to pay for or not is just to speak with people from this industry. And usually you can find at least, couple person from any, type of industry or company easily, like even if the founders don't want to share or whatever it is. So usually for me, when you speak with the person, you can ask, direct questions about how they do business right now. And then you can understand if this new startup, for example, if it's B2B software, which this company has to pay for in the future if everything is successful. And then you try to understand if it actually makes sense or not. But I think like the more you talk with people, the more you understand the overall industries and how they operate and how they do not operate. And then like the more you know, the more you the easier it gets for you to understand the innovations in a way that if they can work easily or they need a lot, or there is a lot of friction, it means that probably they need more capital to do it. And then you kind of, after you read the pitch deck, it gets easier to understand what is real and what is not. But I think that the best way for me was always just speaking with people like this, doing interviews or doing something, and then understanding the industries by, real cases. Because I feel that general reports or articles or research papers. They're very good in terms of understanding how big the market is or how big it can be. But usually all the startups don't look at the whole market. They usually look at very specific part of the market or specific customers of this market, and they are all unique. And then it's always just makes sense to understand how people are doing it today, and the best way is just to speak with them.
Maybe I will continue. So I think that the simplest way or the best way to learn something from scratch is just to think about one question is, if I were to do this, how would I go about it? So I think that by breaking down all the steps and studying the basic theories behind every step, I think we'll just get closer to the essence of the matter and also spot the key bottleneck and difficulties in the process. And during the process, you could see there are so many questions that you can easily understand, but others you cannot understand at all. And you will consult some expert or learn some classes to help you solve that. But just by repeating the process, I think you can really understand the key bottleneck, the difficulties, and the key milestones of such business. And another thing is that because I used to look at a lot of social network and consumer internet applications. I think first-hand experience is very important. So another way is just to talk to as many as users to get the best sense of what the product and what the service is doing and how the users are, what's the feedback. So back to my early times when just starting the social network industry, just tried hundreds of applications, and you just play with all kinds of users and talk to them every day, and you can have a better taste and feeling of what is good product, what is not. So just by doing as much as first-hand research and down to earth talkings with the users, I think you can have a better sense of what's really going on, but not just what's described in the pitch book and the business plan by the founders. Because just as Ilya and also mentioned, many early stage founders, they have big dreams, but they may be too optimistic, over optimistic, and you need to really get down to earth and to find what is realistic.
I like that approach. So talking to your network, talking to other founders, reading kind of reports, that's one approach. Or you can also these could be done in parallel. You also talk to users, understand, is this product or is this company truly solving the pain point? So similar to what product managers do, right? You have to talk to customers and make sure we're on the right path to solve the correct people problem, not just think about an imaginary problem, try to solve it. That's a good point. I like both of your approaches. Junwei, do you have something to add, or is it very similar to what they described?
Yes, thanks for, the Xiaohan mentioned the voice from the customer, and Ilya mentioned from, the expertise and specialized in this domain. They actually also can share very hands-on the industry level, this kind of suggestion. And for me, it's very different. So here's the thing. I'm usually using the ChatGPT just to assume, this prompt. Hi, you are an expertise in this kind of field, and give me about 20 keywords about this field, and let's go through these keywords step by step. So on my side, I just work with this the GPT assistant to help me to understand the field as soon as possible. But I know it's not enough, but it's very quick. It's just like the fast food McDonald's. That's it. It's not I mean, just like the fast food is not healthy, we can't use it for the long time. We can't use it for the real case, but it's a good starting point. We know some angle, we know some, the definition, and we can talk with, the founders or the expertise in this field, just like, you at least still in this community. I think this helped me a lot. And then the next step is I will keep reminding this, for example, this kind of business logic. I know sometimes maybe the technology is different, but sometimes maybe this kind of business pattern, the how to make money, the logic is similar. So I will throw this kind of questions to the maybe in this domain or maybe in other domains entrepreneur. I will talk with them, and they actually can leverage the networking or the experience in the past, can evaluate what's the pros and cons for this kind of pitch deck. And yes, learn. I think it's kind of the continuous way to learn step by step. Yeah.
I like that approach as well. I think the convenience of having these AI assistant tools, it really improves our productivities, right? If there's an industry report, there's like a new conference, you could have ChatGPT or Cloud or Gemini to summarize what are some key takeaways, to extract the essence from all the explosive PR coverage. And then I also like your approach about having 20 keywords, because sometimes our mind should not be too overwhelmed by a bunch of new information, but you have a good starting point, right? I like the analogy of the fast food. It might not be the most nutritious things, but it gets the job done, right? You will be full after having the meal. And then that's a step up. Eventually, once you master the basic concepts, then you will have a leg up to go one step further to understand, hey, when you talk to other industry experts, you already have a basic vocabulary, like understanding, so that makes it easier for the communication to keep going. That makes sense.
Thanks, Yang, summarize about that.
Yeah.
And I think, if I can add, if we just, started with the whole, ChatGPT and all the AI. So what I've been using is a kind of AI agent to look at the pitch decks for me, just to get a summary of the pitch deck with the key, information about the company. And then it's much easier to look at, kind of Excel sheet with all the pitch decks and then seeing which one is interested more than the others, because I feel now that it's almost like a crime to not use AI in any way, especially if it's is getting easier and easier. And even for me, who I'm not like super technical person, so I know some basic coding and how it's all done, but I cannot create something unique. But the whole no code or low code AI builders and stuff like this, they actually make your life much easier. And then it can give you like a nice summary of a pitch deck, and then you can read it, you can ask questions, and then open only those that kind of make sense for you. And then it just actually saves you a lot of time, especially if you have like a lot of inbound pitch decks or inbound messages. It just helps you to filter them. And AI now, but it's so funny with this, if I can add a remark, with the each cycle. I don't know, for me, for this 8 or 7 years, it might be the 4th or the 5th. So we had this before that it was crypto, before that it was the whole food delivery the next day, or like the next 5 minutes. Before that we had buy now, pay later. Everybody was doing this, and there is always something new which excites the investors and people. Yeah, but it's funny with the AI that the very first company I was kind of involved in building, it was an AI company in 2015 or 16 when it wasn't so magical as it's now. It was just like a machine learning thing, but still it's always funny how there is something new it's popular right now. But what's always what I cannot understand as an investor with each hype is that usually your exit, your return will be in 8 or 10 years. But if it's hype right now, it doesn't mean that it will be hype, in 10 years, but people still try to invest into everything that's hot right now, just, probably for the brand or for showing that they can invest into hot things right now. So it's always this game when you invest. It's very hard to, kind of filter the noise, especially if you're, like a typical fund. If you're a typical VC fund, you always get pressured from your investors, your LP investors, to actually, to invest into hot things because, they see it every day. They see AI, they saw crypto, they saw this buy now, pay later, and they ask you why you are not invested into this if everybody else is doing it. If Sequoia is investing into this, why you, small fund, are not investing into this? So it's very hard to, keep your line and keep your kind of background and, stay true to yourself and invest only in things that you think are important. But with each hype, you always get pressure to do something, and usually it will be a failure just because it's not your type of investment or it's not your industry or something like this, but you just want to be, one of those cool guys who are all investing into something new. And that's a challenge as well if we come back to previous question. But yeah, but I just wanted to add about AI that it's really actually very helpful now in the whole due diligence and screening of startups. Yeah.
Yeah, I think AI definitely makes everybody's life easier, right? You don't have to read 20, 30 pages report. You could have a nice, easy to consume and digest bullet format. You actually brought up a really good question, Ilya, regarding how do you stay true to your path versus investing in something that you got peer pressure into, right? So Junwei, you're in the US fund, Xiaohan, you're in the Chinese fund, and Ilya, you're investing in Australia. So you guys are all in different regions. So how do you choose popularity versus that you think long term would have a better return?
Okay, I could start. Frankly speaking, it's a very challenging question. At this kind of stage, maybe I will share some, we'll still keep some discipline or the principle. Do not try to rush into this kind of field you believe, this is not a long term. I think this is a discipline I insisted on. The first one, because of I don't have the huge numbers of bullets is the first one, so you have limited resource. And the second one is it's a long journey, which means yes, we incubate or support each other with the founders, and we also hope there is another round. The investor join the game together, which means it should be at least in a healthy way. And sometimes, in the bubble, in the hype, and if we don't find a good production, and we can't find monetization this kind of product, we can't find the second round. The investor joins the game, which means what? Which means actually, we are not Square, we are not the Tiger Capital. So still discipline, keep the discipline step by step. And I think the time, will tell us about the results. This is the first one. And the second one is, I know AI is a hype, but what happened for the other field, for example, the biotech, for example, the materials. I think for VC fund, they maybe have the 2 or 3 this kind of direction. So if we already clearly know, okay, AI is the future, but it will be up and down. And now looks like there are lots of, this kind of a bubble. How about this way? We still keep learning. Yeah, we still keep communication with other guys to increase our insight or understanding of the market. But we keep the limits for the limit time for the investment. This is the first one. But we still can leverage. Do we have the other AI plus way? For example, AI plus in the materials, the new materials, the funding in this way, transfer or the leverage this kind of knowledge to the other field. And if we find in this kind of this field and the innovation, actually we still can investment about it. So in summary, keep my discipline. This is the first one. And the second one is we can find another alternative way to using the AI to boosting other field and investment to the other field. I try to use this way on my side to avoid burning money. So far. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, makes sense. So you're very focused hardcore on the application, right? It's not just another developer tool, right? It has to have realistic application for materials, for biotech that leveraging AI, that you can see, long term, this is a viable path versus there's some fancy demos and, inflated numbers and stuff. Okay, makes sense. Ilya, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it very much depends on the type of investment firm you work at, because at some point I worked in a family office in London, which is pretty much just a very wealthy person who just decides to invest into all kind of different investment classes and investment assets, and it was very different in terms of because family office, for example, he's not bound by investors or something, so pretty much what we could do, we could invest into seed round and then sell our shares the next round after a couple of years, and then pretty much it was okay for us just to make some money, but then we didn't have to wait long years. For VCs, they usually have longer periods, and then it's another way of thinking of how to invest. So for example, family offices, they can run this hype wave and exit the next round, or some angel investors, what they do, they just invest into pre-seed of some hype AI companies, but they have good connections to VC firms. They just introduce these companies to VC firms, and then they sell their shares in the next round as well. It's kind of like introductory fee or whatever it is. So it's very different. I think what's important here is what I guess everybody said, is just to be disciplined, about your own type of investing, and just to stick to it. So if you know how to invest for 10 years, then just do this. If you know how to invest for 2 years, keep doing this and just exit the companies. So just, I guess it's very important to write down your strategy, to look at it every day why they're doing it, how you're doing it, and then if you understand that it doesn't work, then there is a problem, but it's not for this discussion, I guess. But still, just stick to what you know how to do best, and then especially if you are not new in the VC, the hype cycle will end at some point, and then all these companies, or the majority of the companies, will collapse, and then you will be kind of the smart guy. Not everybody else, but it's important to think about VC as a long-term game, and always look at this as not a quick liquid investment as your equities on stock exchange, but just to look at this as a long term, and then kind of stick to what you know how to do.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's interesting because I didn't know that some of the family office their pressure to have returns will be slightly lower than if it's a traditional VC fund, but they're looking for a quicker exit, right? That they're investing in the earlier age, or maybe they want to sell later, so they just do something different. And one last question is that if our readers, some of them are founders, what is the best way to reach out? Do you guys prefer cold email, or do you guys prefer having somebody that's a mutual connection to introduce them to you?
Yeah, for me, just LinkedIn. I think it's the best, kind of sourcing tool of everybody on this planet who is a professional, or Twitter as well, which is, the playing field for everybody. But yeah, no, I don't need. I think the warm connection works if it's usually for later stages. So when you you invested in the company, in the founder, you know them for a couple of years, and then you can introduce them to later stage VC firms. And this warm introduction, I think it's very valuable. Or if you worked with this person in this particular startup, but if you just know the person from something else, it doesn't mean that, in this particular startup is good enough. It just means that, this person is good enough, but it's not always, enough kind of for a good company or a good startup. So I feel that warm introductions are a bit oversold by it. Just for me, it just means that people don't want to talk with you. So it just I guess any cold DM or anything. But the problem with cold DMs is that you need to know how to write them, and this is also kind of a challenge, especially in LinkedIn, because it's just 300 characters or something. So it's kind of challenging. But yeah, for me
that's good to know that cold DMs and Twitter work pretty well. How about you, Xiaohan or Junwei?
Yes, LinkedIn or the cold email works for me on my side. Yeah, sometimes we also have the maybe the other VC friends actually they also can introduce some deal. Maybe we're interested in investment, co-invest together. I think this is another way popular in the Silicon Valley.
Got it. Thanks so much. That kind of wraps up the questions I have. And I'll make sure I put you guys LinkedIn and then any applicable websites in our newsletter as well. Again, thank you, Ilya, Junwei, and Xiaohan for your time.